Nope.
Welcome to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita, NAMI Kansas, and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We're the largest grassroots advocacy network for people with mental illness and their family members, with over 800 national affiliates and 15 Kansas affiliates. We provide awareness, support, education, and advocacy for people affected by mental illness. Our purpose here today is to provide the Wichita KSUN Community Radio community with a conversation that provides insight into what it is like to live with mental illness. Our intention and hope is that our program will change attitudes, assumptions, and stereotypes about what people with mental health conditions deal with all the time. My name is Andy Martin. I'm the Director of Communications Development for NAMI Kansas. I'm very pleased and proud to be your host today, and I'm a person with mental illness. I'm in recovery for general anxiety. Like everybody in the human race, I struggle with the stress and challenges of being a fully human being, but I'm doing okay. And I know that I have many gifts to offer my family, my work, my friends, and my community. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to one of my new best friends, Lynn Kaur. Lynn, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Andy. I actually live with a mental illness as well. I live with what is called schizoaffective disorder, that in my case is a combination of both schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. I also live with PTSD. These days I'm doing very, very well, though there are times when my mental illness breaks through and I have symptoms, though today I'm doing great.
Wow. Welcome, Lynn Kaur. We're glad you're here today, right here in Wichita at KSUN Community Radio. So you've been involved in the Wichita community for a while and a part of NAMI Wichita, which is NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness here in Wichita. You've had lots of different roles there. What kind of things have you done?
Well, currently I'm what's called a peer-to-peer teacher. That's a mentor for people that take a peer-to-peer course, which is a course for people living with mental illness, taught by people who are in recovery with mental illness. I also do Our Own Voice presentations, which is a presentation given by two people that live with mental illness, and it's to reduce stigma about mental illness and educate the public about mental illness. I also do a lot of work on the computer for NAMI Wichita, which is something I really enjoy, making things on the computer, invitations, posters, flyers, things like that, which I really enjoy doing that.
Yeah, and you also have a job, too.
I have a job outside of the mental illness field, actually. I have a part-time job at Petco here in town, where I've worked for 21 years now.
Wow. So do you get to hold pets and work with pets?
Actually, yes, I do. It's not quite as fun as it sounds.
Okay.
I don't get to handle the pets all that much, though I do help make sure they get food and water at the end of the day, and whenever a customer is looking at one of the animals, then I get to take it out and show it to them and tell them how to care for it.
I'd love to talk to you more about whether you're a cat person or a dog person or a reptile, but we won't go into that today. Okay. That'd be a whole nother fun mental health conversation about the role of pets in recovery.
Very much so.
So, well, just to kind of start things off with, you've got a couple minutes to tell us, what is your personal perspective on mental illness, and how would you describe in your own voice?
With my mental illness, I live mostly in recovery these days, less symptoms than I used to have. When I first started off with suffering from the debilitating effects of the mental illness back in the early 80s, I experienced symptoms almost 24 hours a day, every day. Now these days I'm doing so much better and experience symptoms every once in a while, maybe once a month or something like that. I'll have some breakthrough symptoms, but other than that, I do very, very well.
So you might just talk a little bit about your diagnosis, what that means to you.
With my diagnosis, I have both symptoms of schizophrenia, which can mean hearing voices that aren't actually there, seeing things that aren't actually there, and I get delusional occasionally along with those symptoms, where I think something that may not be actually true, but it's very true for me.
Right. And then it sounds like that also is that is intersected with bipolar then too.
The bipolar, I have mostly trouble with depression. I've occasionally deals with manic episodes, but most of the time it's depression.
So this is Our Own Voice on KSUN Community Radio, and we're talking with Lynn Core on about living in recovery from mental illness. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita, NAMI Kansas, and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and my name is Andy Martin, and I'm here with my friend Lynn Core.
Good to be here, Andy.
So I forgot to mention a couple people in our first segment. I want to thank our executive producer, David Peterson, and our technical producer, David Larson. So they're sitting here in the studio doing a fantastic job, and they're just amazing. So our title of our program today is The Voice of Schizophrenia. And could you tell us a little bit more about what it's like, in the hard times with schizophrenia, in the dark days?
In the hard times, for me, it's very scary. I hear voices that are coming from outside of myself that are saying horrible things. They're very mean to me. They say things like, "You're a horrible person," that you really don't have any friends, that those people that you think are friends are just pretending to be your friends and they don't really like you at all, that I'm persecuting people or that I'm killing people even, and they have a lot of power in my mind. In my mind, they can actually kill people without me being there, just people that I know. So it's always someone that is important to me is the one that's being killed. So a lot of times I'll have to call up those people and make sure they're okay. And, of course, they always say they are, and then 30 seconds later I wonder, well, maybe now they're dead. So it's very scary with that kind of thing, with hearing the voices. When I'm delusional, and that happens often in conjunction with the voices, I don't get scared with that usually. It's very real.
So I think one way to talk about this in terms of mental health terminology is psychosis, and that there's a lot of what you experience in schizophrenia is not real. It feels real to you. It is your reality, but it's not really happening. And as opposed to those of us that would be around you, we're not experiencing that voice. We're not experiencing what you're experiencing, which is different than neurosis. Where my understanding of a neurosis is when there's no imagination of a reality. It's just that we feel we're not living within the rules.
Okay.
We're breaking the rules.
Okay.
And that's the difference between some people's experience with anxiety and depression, is that they're not fitting in. They're not following the rules, as opposed to psychosis, which would be, the illusions and dementia that would be associated with that.
Or my reality is completely different from anyone else's.
So was there a particular incident that was really powerful for you and helped you in taking responsibility for your schizophrenia or the voice of schizophrenia?
Not particularly. I know when I'm going through the symptoms of the schizophrenic part of it, because it is so real to me that it's hard to differentiate what's going on outside of me, so it doesn't really I believe it. And at that moment, it's all I believe. So I can't deal with it outside of the schizophrenia until I start feeling better. Mm-hmm. And usually that takes medication to get me back to the point where I can deal with things, and the delusions go away after that. I'm lucky that they do disappear for periods of time, for long periods of time, and just come back when the stress is really bad.
So, thank God for medication, right?
Thank God for medication. Yes.
Thank God for providers that can help us understand how different medications can help us. Have you struggled with finding the right medication? Has that been part of your journey?
Very much so. I took medication starting in 1984, and for the first 15 years or so, I struggled with depression primarily, very severe depression, a lot of suicide attempts, things like that. I was never happy. I never thought that my world would be okay. I just thought I'd be miserable the rest of my life and didn't see any hope. Found some medication at that point that just kind of clicked.
Oh, wow.
Now, with the schizophrenia, that happened back when I was set up for ECT, or electroconvulsive therapy, which is a type of treatment where they give you a kind of a shock treatment or controlled seizure with mechanisms. And I got so scared the day before that happened that I started hallucinating for the very first time. So the stress of the fear is what kicked the hallucinations in for the first time. They were really quite funny when you think about it.
Oh, well, no, there's a healthy recovery attitude. This is a funny cartoon that I'm experiencing. So
it wasn't funny at the time,
right?
But it's funny now. I saw Big Bird from Sesame Street, so you don't always see him.
Oh, my word. So, well, I'm hearing a voice telling us that we need to take another little break here.
Okay.
So, again, this is Our Own Voice on KSUN Community Radio. And I'm Andy, and this is Lynn, and we're talking about what it means to live in recovery in mental illness. And we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. The song you were just listening to is titled Spirit Dance. It was composed and performed by our very own David Larson, who is our technical producer here. So, round of applause to our technical support there. I think it's really amazing that we can have a person that has his own lived experience with mental illness using his own voice of music to communicate what it means to dance with mental illness. So we're continuing our own voice conversation about increasing awareness about mental illness in the Wichita area, and our own voice is intended to humanize the misunderstood, highly stigmatized topic of mental illness by showing that it's possible and common to live well with a mental health condition. So, Lynn, we tend to talk a lot about the dark days and the hard days, but when you're living well, what does living well with mental illness feel like to you? How do you experience that?
I don't know what normal is besides it sitting on the dryer, but I feel like I have a pretty normal life.
Oh, that was funny. That was a good line there. What is normal other than a setting on the dryer? Is that what you said? Uh-huh. That's really good. So, there is no normal other than the dryer. That's right. Good. And so that's a great perspective on what you can live well. Mm-hmm. We all can live well no matter what our situation is.
I'm very lucky that I have a job. Not all of my friends do, but I cope very well with my job. In fact, it helps me more than anything because it distracts me from my own mental illness.
Right.
Gets me out of my head for a time, and I can focus on what's going on outside the world, outside of my mental illness, and I do very well when I can distract myself. My job does that for me very, very much.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough challenge between maintaining mindfulness as well as just kind of needing to escape and get away and have some downtime. I'm curious, one of the things that we talk about in peer-to-peer and I think other classes is our personal recovery plan. How do you describe your personal recovery plan, as opposed to your treatment plan?
Well, my recovery plan deals very much with my job and with my family and my other supports like NAMI, contacting them whenever I'm having trouble or when I'm not having trouble, just to maintain my life on a quote-unquote normal basis.
Do you, we think of a treatment plan as being something between a provider and the patient, and that a lot of that has to do with the provider making a diagnosis and maybe providing medication and prescriptions and watching how that works, whereas the recovery plan is outside of that and trying to support that. And that's a lot of what the National Alliance on Mental Illness does, is we provide support groups, we provide education, we provide advocacy so that people can be successful in their therapeutic relationships. So do you use diet, sleep as a part of your recovery plan?
I should, but I actually don't.
So you haven't really experienced that some people use food and the way that helps them stay in recovery or help them prevent being triggered or having
I think
an episode.
Me, the recovery is more of a social aspect, is being out in the world with people, utilizing people like my mom. When I'm having trouble, I can call my mom and we'll just talk about the family.
Right.
And anything but the mental illness.
Right.
And I can go to my job and focus on everything but the mental illness and do my job, or I can visit with customers and everything but my mental illness, and that's what helps.
So the reality, though, what I hear you saying and what you're kind of giving voice to is that your mental illness is with you all along, all the time.
Right.
Right. And so you kind of know that voice of schizophrenia is there.
And it could show up at any time.
And there's probably a voice of anxiety and worry that you have to learn how to cope with. And part of that coping is having distractions and social life that keeps that at bay, keeps it kind of allows you to coexist with it. Do you use that language much?
Yeah. I think for me, anything that reduces the stress, and for me, that's social life.
Right.
When the stress gets bad, that's when I start experiencing symptoms. Too much work, too much anything can cause the symptoms to come back. So as long as I can keep myself on an even keel, doing the things that I know help keep me distracted and working on myself seem to help the most.
So how do is there certain rituals that you do at the beginning of the day or the end of the day? Do those help you in your recovery or not?
For me, staying busy is the biggest key. I have to know what I'm going to do all day or I don't get out of bed. As long as I know what my plan is, then I can keep going every day doing the things that are on my schedule and keeping a strict schedule of what's going to happen that day.
Does routine help you too?
Routine helps me very much, yes.
Oh, fascinating. Very good. Well, we're coming up on another time boundary here. So this is Our Own Voice on KSUN Community Radio. Lynn Core and Andy Martin, and we're talking about recovery from mental illness. So we'll be back. Take another chance to listen to The Spirit Dance by David Peterson. Welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership for mental health awareness with NAMI Wichita, NAMI Kansas, and KSUN Community Radio. I'd like to thank Lynn Core for being here today and sharing her perspectives on the voice of schizophrenia. Thank you for...
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it very much.
Is there anything you'd like to kind of sum everything up with here today?
Sure. I'd like to say that I look pretty normal. I can think of one time when we went to give an Our Own Voice presentation to a high school class that was taking college courses, and they thought we'd be escorted in with straitjackets on. And that's so far from the truth in 99.9% of the cases. So
Right.
I'd like people to know that I look pretty normal, and that I feel pretty normal most of the time.
Yeah, good for you. I really liked in the last segment that we did how you talked about how you experience your mental illness all the time. It's where it's there, but you're able to be in
I don't
recovery.
notice it most of the
Right.
time.
I wanted to thank you for experiencing the stress and anxiety of changing your routine, for coming in and talking with us today.
Sure.
I want to give you a compliment. You really handled the stress and the microphones and all the distractions from our producers and everything really, really well. So
Thank you. That's quite all right.
you are very normal. So, yes.
Thank you.
So we want to bring in David Peterson into our conversation here today and give people some information about NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness for Wichita. And David, you're the vice president for this chapter?
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
And you're on the board. And what are some of if people are interested in learning more about NAMI, how can they get involved?
We have ongoing classes and ongoing programs and support groups. If you'd like our phone number to call, somebody will get back to you as soon as possible. But it's 686-1373, and that's for NAMI Wichita, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
So that's a 316, of course.
Yes. And then also we have 2 websites you could get more information on. info@namiwichita.org or www.namiwichita.org. And then also we are on the Facebook page. But we do have many programs that we offer on a continuous basis. The first Tuesday of every month we have what we call our affiliate meeting, where we have education. Normally a speaker comes in and gives us some real good insight as to whatever they are involved in.
And that's located at First Presbyterian Church, is that right?
This program, yes, is offered at the First Presbyterian program downtown Wichita at 525 North Broadway, right across the street from the old Sedgwick County Courthouse. And that it says the Broadway address. You actually come in on the Market Street. But we have also on the third Tuesday of every month, we have what we call Ask a Doctor. And it runs from 6 to 7 at that same location, the Presbyterian Church. And it's very enlightening to a lot of people because they will normally explain different medications. And then after that particular, we have the Share and Care family support. And we break up into groups, and we have people just share their challenges. We also have other programs. We have on the fourth Tuesday at the United Methodist Church.
College Hill United Methodist.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
At 2930 East 1st Street here in Wichita.
Right. And that is a sharing for both those that are peers and those that have our family members.
Right. And that's at 6:30 to 8:30.
That's correct.
And then we also have a life support group for parents and caregivers of children with mental illness, right?
It's called This Life.
This Life, that's right. That's at West Heights United Methodist Church at 745 Northwest Link.
Right, that's on the west side of town.
Of course, we also have a NAMI on campus with Wichita State University. So we are just really grateful for KSUN Community Radio and giving us an opportunity to put this information out there. And David Peterson, appreciate your being here today to help us.
Enjoyed it.
So I want to kind of close things up today with a big thank you to KSUN Community Radio. We're learning how to do this, and we're learning it. It's just like learning to live with mental illness. You know, we make some mistakes, we figure some things out. So this has been Our Own Voice, and thank you. Hope you'll join us for our next program about living in recovery with mental illness. And remember to share your own voice. It's worth being heard.
I had the script right